Chapter 432, Tough Choice. Ling Jian's letter. I originally planned to follow the plan and make my retreat, but Shui Qianhuan offered a new business deal to kill the other two sons of Yu Manlu. After thinking about the matter for a long time, I can't come to a decision. Ever since the courtyard was built and the first pavilion established, every member who has tried to infiltrate the Yu family was discovered and killed. Our first pavilion and the Yu family are destined to become enemies. The airtight defenses of the Yu family have rendered us incapable of digging out the Yu family's trump cards. The world is about to fall into chaos, and if we are still unable to investigate the hidden strengths of the Yu family, it will definitely be detrimental to the ambition of our young noble. Young noble is currently in danger and being pursued by the martial order medallion. But the moment he returns, it would be akin to a dragon returning to the ocean or a tiger returning to the forest, and the storm clouds will definitely be stirred. If we are still unable to settle this matter by the time young noble returns, are we going to trouble young noble to take action personally? If that's the case, Jian will not have the face to continue living in this world. Jian plans to spend a few days to visit the Yu family in the night. If I can kill them, I will spare no effort in doing so. If I can't kill them, I will focus my effort on investigating the Yu family. Even though there are some risks in doing so, this life of mine belongs to the young noble. I don't dare to let him down. As such, I have sent a note to Skybearing to seek permission. Jian will be waiting for a response in Northern Wei. The forces of the Yu family are presently thinly spread, and such an opportunity will not come again. I hope for a quick response. Quick response? My dear Ling Jian, you have really given me a huge dilemma. Ling Chen let out a sigh as she paced around in frustration. While Ling Jian's suggestion seemed to be extremely rash and without any benefits, Ling Chen knew that the Ling family had never succeeded in spying on the internal affairs of the Yu family. In fact, it wasn't just the first pavilion. All other powers had definitely tried spying on the Yu family before, only to have all of their spies eradicated. Just as the saying goes, knowing your enemy as thyself will lead to success every time. Without a proper grasp of the enemy's strength, mistakes in judgment would definitely be made. In critical times, the outcome of the whole battle may even be determined as a result of a mistake. From this aspect alone, Ling Jian's suggestion was definitely an appropriate one. Currently, there wasn't anyone more suitable for the task than Ling Jian. Furthermore, Ling Jian was presently stationed in Northern Wei. As long as Ling Jian could successfully enter and leave the Yu family, the internal affairs of the Yu family would be easily deduced even if Ling Jian didn't investigate anything in particular. However, the undercurrents in Northern Wei were surging, and the situation was currently extremely unstable. The Yu family would definitely be much more careful at this time. Trying to spy on the Yu family now was definitely far riskier than usual. However, this was also the time where the forces of the Yu family were the most thinly spread. Everything had an advantage and disadvantage, thus trapping Ling Chen in a dilemma. It was a gamble, but the stakes of this game was Ling Jian's life. However, Ling Chen and the rest were presently stationed in Skybearing and couldn't be of any help. Deep within her heart, Ling Chen was definitely unwilling to allow Ling Jian to take such a risk. After all, Ling Jian was the second closest person to her after Ling Tian. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Ling Jian was like a close brother to her. If Ling Jian were to meet with misfortune, it would definitely be a huge loss to the first pavilion, the Ling family, and Ling Tian. Such a wager was something that Ling Chen didn't dare to place. Neither was she qualified to place it. But if she let this chance pass, would that mean that she would need Ling Tian to take action personally in future? This was the biggest dilemma Ling Chen had faced ever since she had taken over the courtyard. Just what should I do? If young noble was here, what would he do? Ling Chen questioned herself over and over again. After a long while, a sharp glare suddenly flashed past her eyes and startled Ling Qi, who was awaiting her decision. Ling Chen had finally made her decision. She lifted up her head and looked at Ling Qi. "Send this message to Ling Jian, only you are allowed to go. No one is to follow you. Those who disobey my orders will be executed without mercy. Furthermore, no one will be allowed to be on the lookout for you. I will only give you 2 hours and you have to make your retreat when the time is up. If you are late for a single second, you will be heavily punished. No matter what, you have to make a safe retreat. If you were to die on this mission, you will be expelled from the Ling family and your tablet will never enter the ancestral hall of the Ling family." Ling Qi felt his body tremble and had an incredulous look in his eyes. He knew that for them to have the word Ling in their names indicated that they belonged to Ling Tian. Regardless of him, Ling Jian or the rest, they were all extremely proud of the Ling word in their names. To expel Ling Jian from the Ling family was an even crueler punishment than dicing him into thousands of pieces. Ling Chen looked up at the sky and let out a long sigh. "Don't change a single word of my order and send it to Ling Jian immediately. Tell him to play it by ear and make an immediate retreat if he doesn't have confidence. If he has the confidence, he must rush back to the courtyard immediately after leaving the Yu family. He does not need to inform Shui Qianhuan about anything." "Yes." Seeing Ling Chen's resolute gaze, Ling Qi didn't dare to say another word. He gave a bow and quickly took his leave. At the same time, he prayed in his heart, "Boss, it is best that you give up. Otherwise, there would be no turning back." In the tranquil street, there were very few pedestrians. The summer afternoon was indeed a bad time for one to be out. The scorching sun was like a huge ball of fire wanting to barbecue everything on the earth. The vegetation on both sides of the street also drooped down listlessly as though the sun had sapped all of its energy. But in such weather, there were 2 figures walking briskly on the road. In the eyes of the common folk, these 2 individuals were walking at a normal pace without anything out of the ordinary. However, none of them realized that the steps of these 2 individuals that seemed so ordinary actually allowed them to travel 30 to 40 feet with every step. This was the extreme realm of movement techniques, achieving the state of shrinking the ground to an inch. If an expert were present, he would definitely not be able to believe his eyes. For an individual to achieve such a realm in his movement techniques, that individual would definitely be a legendary character. However, there were actually 2 such individuals appearing together, and they were both extremely young and no different from teenagers. In such weather and despite being under the scorching sun, not a single droplet of sweat could be seen on their faces. Their gazes were also extremely ordinary and just a little bit clearer than a normal individual. Could it be that these 2 individuals had achieved the realm of returning to one's true self? That was a legendary realm that one couldn't hope of achieving without decades of hard work. Could it be that these 2 individuals were actually unparalleled experts who had regained their youth? One of them was male, the other female. The male was a suave young gentleman and always had an amiable smile on his face. When one saw him, the description of modest gentleman and gentle like Jade would definitely surface in their mind. However, who would have imagined that this suave and amiable young man had actually charged into the enemy's forces and slaughtered thousands with his own hands? Who would have imagined that he was the maniacal god of massacre who shook the entire continent? The young girl was slightly more petite than the male and was dressed in a snow-white dress. Her appearance was like a beautiful flower, and she could truly be described as a country-toppling beauty. Despite her taking a casual stroll on the streets, she looked as though she was a fairy who had descended from the heavens and wouldn't be stained by the ugly filth of the mortal world. If someone looked at her, they would definitely be filled with a sense of inferiority and be afraid to even lift their head up to catch a second glance. A smile full of wisdom could always be seen on the girl's lips, and it was obvious that she was filled with joy. It was truly a match made in heaven. These 2 teens were naturally Ling Tian and Li Zhu. Currently, they had already made a detour around Western Han and were less than 100 miles away from bright Jade City. The sudden appearance of above heavens had temporarily removed the threat of the martial order medallion, and Ling Tian could finally vent his frustrations from being pursued for such a long time. Thus, he decided to use his original appearance to travel openly on a main road. If anyone dared to seek their deaths, he would have a perfect target to vent his frustrations. However, after traveling for almost half a day, not a single figure could be seen. This made Ling Tian extremely depressed. Could it be that I am so worthless that I can't even meet a robber? Seeing Ling Tian's expression, Li Zhu began to chuckle. Is someone feeling frustrated about not having a target to bully? Ling Tian said hatefully, how strange. More than 2,000 of those BSTRDs were gathered back then and not a single one of them can be seen now. Could it be that they have all learned to be obedient? Or are we concealing our tracks too well? How can they not find us? Li Zhu replied with a smile, you don't have to worry about that. With how high profile we have acted in the past 2 days, there would definitely be many who have found us. However, most of them would be lone rangers or small groups. Do you truly think that a few of them would dare to provoke the infamous young noble Lin? Would they dare to pull on the tiger's whiskers? Wouldn't that be no different from seeking death? They would definitely want to gather some manpower before having the guts to make their appearance. There's no need to worry, the time will definitely come soon. Ling Tian snorted, now that we are entering Northern Wei, we will be reaching the Yu family's territory. If any other family were to be afraid of me, I would still be able to accept it. But how can it be that even the Yu family and above heavens are completely silent? There is definitely something fishy about this. What's so fishy about it? Li Zhu pursed her lips and said with disdain, you are truly pig-headed. Above heavens has just battled with justice and with justice heavily injured, how many of them could be left uninjured? How would they have the strength to attack you? As for the Yu family. As Li Zhu said that, she suddenly stopped and began shouting excitedly, look, they are finally here. Hee, finally some robbers. Woo. Ling Tian rolled his eyes speechlessly as he thought, this lass is truly something else. Who would be so excited when seeing robbers trying to rob them? Ordinary petty thieves would probably be scared away by her crazy antics. Although, Ling Tian himself was also feeling extremely elated. Chapter 433, A Small Bet. About 30 to 40 feet away, dozens of individuals suddenly swarmed out from the sides of the road and completely blocked the way. They were all in prime condition and it was obvious that they weren't too weak. However, Ling Tian felt a sense of depression in his heart. Could it be that these people thought that they could stop him with so few people? They are overestimating themselves and underestimating him. Thinking about that, Ling Tian circulated his inner chi and sent his spiritual sense out to his surroundings. The person in the lead shouted out, Ling Tian, you are truly gutsy. You actually dare to walk into our territory so openly. Do you truly think that you are invincible? Li Zhu chuckled and said softly, young noble Ling, you have to grasp this opportunity to have some fun. Ling Jian glared at her and replied, I suddenly remembered an appropriate saying for this occasion, the Yu family, truly demonic. A turtle appearing right when we were talking about a tortoise. Speak of the devil. Li Zhu couldn't help but hold onto her sides as she giggled. At the same time, Ling Tian let out a hearty laugh, there are definitely many people in the world who are capable of taking care of me. However, it would definitely not be you. Report your name to this young noble will never kill a nameless individual. Hearing Ling Tian say the classic this young noble will never kill a nameless individual from her past life, Li Zhu couldn't rein in her laughter as she squatted down and clutched her tummy while laughing uncontrollably. With a smile from a beauty, countries and cities would definitely topple. But for a beauty to laugh so uncontrollably like that, it would be impossible for the cities and countries to topple. While these men didn't mention their origins, Ling Tian was certain that they were from the Yu family. In truth, in the Northern Wei Empire, Only the Yu family would be capable of arranging manpower to kill him the moment they received news about him. No one else would have the strength or guts to do so. The person leading the crowd took a step forward, and when his feet landed on the ground, a loud bang sounded as a huge dust of cloud rose into the air. Facing the powerful Ling Tian, he was nervous to the point he had unknowingly circulated his inner chi all around his body, and every action carried all of his strength. He then roared, "Ling Tian, come out and meet your death." A powerful inner chi was imbued within the roar, and it sounded like thunder, echoing far and wide. His imposing manner was truly rather frightening. "Do you want to do it? Or do you want me to do it?" Ling Tian smiled and looked at Li Zhu. "Look at how nervous he is, with his body all tensed up. I dare to bet that his stomach definitely has 6 packs. If you don't believe me, I will strip him naked for you to take a look. Let us gamble on a title. If you lose, you will be called Little Doggy from now on. How about that?" Li Zhu chuckled as her face turned red. Rolling her eyes, she pursed her lips. "They are here to find Ling Tian and not me. What has this got to do with me? You still want to gamble with me? I have never seen anyone so senseless like you. Who cares if he has 6 or 8 packs, is it very rare? Do you have the guts to make the bet?" Ling Tian teased, "Do you remember that you have never won a bet with me before? Poor lass. Alright, let's have a bet. Would I be afraid of you?" Li Zhu replied, "You can fight him if you want, I am too lazy to make a move. Dealing with a bunch of men like them would only dirty my hands. You are also a man yourself, and would you require the help of a lady? Even if you want to distance yourself from the matter, there will probably be people looking for you." Ling Tian chuckled and whispered into Li Zhu's ears, "Do you see that? Every one of them looks like they are sexually deprived. There were even many of them who swallowed a mouthful of saliva when looking at you. I wonder what they were thinking about. Can you make a guess?" Hee hee. Li Zhu's face turned red as she grabbed onto Ling Tian's ears and scolded fiercely, "Do you dare to say it again?" Ling Tian cried out in pain and said softly, "How would this few of them dare to block my way? There is definitely an ambush elsewhere. There are a few dangerous soars approaching us from the forest on the side, and a few experts are also in ambush behind us. The two of us can't take action together. If one of us were to take action, the other should stay behind as support. The one watching the fight is more important than the one fighting. It is best for you to consider the matter carefully. I am afraid that with your feeble martial arts, you may be captured by the enemy and things would be bad. If you were truly captured, should I surrender myself or escape immediately?" Li Zhu's immediate response was to send a kick to Ling Tian's ass as she scolded, "You are the one who is going to be captured. If you were to be captured, this miss here will definitely not bother saving you." She was originally listening to what Ling Tian had to say attentively, nodding her head in agreement. However, she never imagined Ling Tian to suddenly change the topic to her being captured. This made Li Zhu feel as though she was toyed with, as a ball of frustration rose in her heart. Wary of Ling Tian's martial arts, the 40+ experts didn't dare to take the initiative to attack as they saw Ling Tian discussing something with Li Zhu. However, they suddenly saw how a squabble broke out and the lady kicked Ling Tian in the ass, sending Ling Tian flying towards them. They couldn't help but be filled with joy as they brandished their blades and wanted to slash Ling Tian's descending figure. Right when they were about to dice Ling Tian into pieces, the situation took another turn and Ling Tian's pathetic figure suddenly paused in midair before descending rapidly to the ground. Before he could land onto the ground, he suddenly flew laterally along the ground like a leaf drifting around in the wind, charging straight into the formation of people in front of him. Before they could do anything, Ling Tian's bombs had cleaved out like 2 gigantic axes and miserable groans sounded. 4 burly men collapsed onto the ground and could no longer get up. The bones below their knees were fractured as though they had been cleaved by a sharp blade, with their calves dangling from their knees only being held on by a small piece of skin. Blood was spurting everywhere and it was an extremely gory sight. The ground surrounding the four burly men was completely dyed in blood. The four of them rolled on the ground moaning and groaning in pain. None of them could believe that they had turned into cripples in just an instant. A look of fear could be seen in the eyes of everyone present as they stood rooted to the ground. Seeing the miserable appearance of their comrades, they couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spine. There were a few of them who couldn't control themselves and began puking their guts out. Behind them, Ling Tian stood with his hands behind his back nonchalantly without a single drop of blood on his white robes. Seeing the scene in front of him, Ling Tian clapped his hands and chuckled, "I already came out to accept my death, but all of you should display some sincerity. With some of you collapsing, others puking, and the rest in a daze, how do you expect this young noble to accept my death? Are you guys thinking of disgusting this young noble to death? Well, I can't say that it is a bad idea." The burly man in the lead let out a roar with his eyes turning red. With a forceful stamp of his feet, he charged towards Ling Tian and the sword in his hand was brandished, unleashing a brilliant flower made from sword chi. Ling Tian laughed heartily as he dashed straight into the sword chi with his bare hands. It was as though he was a butterfly flying into a bed of roses. That burly man was appalled. Despite the fact that he should have the upper hand with his weapon, he could feel that Ling Tian was the one with the upper hand. Ling Tian stuck himself within a foot of his chest and the 3-foot-long nimble sword suddenly felt as though it was far too long. The burly man felt as though he had a body full of strength but just couldn't use it at all. He could feel his opponent's palms weaving around his sword chi, occasionally grabbing onto the tip of his sword with 2 fingers, occasionally slapping the back of his sword with a palm, occasionally touching the body of his sword. If he tried to take a step forward, Ling Tian would take a step back and remain close beside him. If he were to take a step back, Ling Tian would also follow closely. Just what kind of a tactic was this? The burly man was crying out bitterly in his heart. He had always been a vicious character for all his life but felt that his hands and feet were completely tied today. Could it be that I am going to die here today? The burly man couldn't help but think to himself. After a short few minutes, the burly man was already drenched in sweat and panting like a bull. He could feel that Ling Tian had countless opportunities to kill him but chose not to do so. From the view of an outsider, it was as though the both of them were having an extremely close fight. However, he was very clear that he had long lost the fight and he should have died many times already. While they were all here to hold Ling Jian back and create opportunities, wasn't Ling Tian also making use of them to lure out the experts who were in hiding? Both parties had their own schemes and plan in mind. By the side, the other burly men couldn't understand what was going on and upon witnessing the intense battle between the two began to cheer, "Big brother, good sword play. You can do it. Kill this little thief and take revenge for our brothers." Hearing those cheers, the burly man had the urge to bury his head in the ground and never reveal his face again. How embarrassing. To think that they are usually pretty witty. Can't they tell that I am about to be bullied to death? A bright laugh suddenly sounded and Ling Tian spun around and retreated from the battle. With a bright smile on his face, Ling Tian held on to a complete set of robes on his left hand and a pair of pants on his right. Opposite him, the burly man held on to his long sword and spun around on the spot foolishly. Feeling the sudden chill on his body, the burly man looked down and fell into a daze. The only thing left on his body was a pair of boxer shorts. His upper body muscles were well developed with a thick forest of chest hair fluttering gently in the winds. His hairy legs were also exposed in the air, and the burly man was like an underwear model, displaying his glory in broad daylight and on the streets. Chapter 434, A Sudden Ambush. His figure was definitely in tip-top condition. After falling into a daze for a while, the burly man quickly regained his senses. According to the culture of Ling Tian's present world, even a married couple would only see each other naked in the bedroom and no one would dare to be completely naked in front of others. The burly man felt his whole face flush red as he gasped in shock and quickly reacted to cover his key areas. However, he forgot about the sword that was in his hand, and the sword pierced right into his own thigh. With the pain assaulting him, he let out another long roar towards the heavens. It was like the cry of a wolf on a full moon night, with his groan of defeat sounding far and wide. What a long breath! Ling Tian praised in his heart. Ha ha ha, lass, open up your eyes and see his 6 packs. Who am I? The #1 god of gambling. How would I lose to you? Ling Tian laughed heartily. Since when have you won any of our bets? Ha ha. If it was Ling Jian, Yu Bingyan or any other ladies of this world, they would have probably turned their head around in embarrassment or covered their eyes with their hands. However, Li Zhu wasn't an ordinary individual and instead looked at the burly man with amusement as she counted under her breath, Tian''G.T. You have lost. It is obviously 7 packs. Eh? It can't be. How can it be 7 packs? Ling Tian looked over doubtfully. It is obviously 6 packs with 3 on each side. How can it be 7 packs? Even if there are more, it should be considered 8 packs. Li Zhu grunted for a while before raising her head up and saying proudly, both his hands are covering the final pack. Ha ha ha. Ling Jian burst into laughter. That doesn't count. I don't care, it is considered your loss. Li Zhu began to act shamelessly before frowning with disgust. Quickly make him put on his clothes. How disgusting. It is indeed pretty disgusting. Even though he is full of muscles, he isn't the least bit attractive. Ling Tian agreed with a smile before shouting, go. With a shake of his right hand, the long pants sliced through the air with a swoosh and shot towards the burly man. That burly man was currently clenching his teeth and trying to pull the sword out of his thigh. However, his muscles were all tensed up and the sword that was embedded within his muscles was completely trapped. Blood flowed down along his thigh and the burly man bent down in pain with large beads of sweat rolling down his face. Right at this moment, the pair of pants that was imbued with Ling Tian's inner chi shot towards the burly man's neck. Without slowing down for a single bit, the burly man's head was sheared off neatly by the flying pair of pants. With Ling Tian's inner chi imbued within it, the pair of pants was as sharp as a blade and had cleanly decapitated the burly man. What a frightening inner chi cultivation. What a frightening method to kill someone. Pooh. A thick arrow of blood shot up towards the sky and rose a full 20 feet into the air. The strange scene in front of them made everyone feel a chill run down their spine as they shivered in fear. However, this was not the end yet. The burly man was still trying to pull out his sword, and upon losing his head, the muscles of the burly man eased up and the bloody sword was suddenly pulled out cleanly. With the remaining force from pulling the sword out, the burly man's arms were both lifted up in the sky before he collapsed on the ground. The remaining dozens of burly men left behind were scared silly by the scene in front of them. They stood rooted to the ground, trembling with cold sweat all over their backs and perspiration flowing down from their cheeks like a waterfall. The 4 burly men who had lost their calves forgot to groan in pain as they witnessed this scene unfolding before them. Their mouths were agape like a large hippopotamus and their muscles began to twitch. My goodness. Li Zhu patted herself on the chest gently and grumbled, are you a pervert? Why did you have to kill him in such a gruesome manner? My hair is all standing up on edge and I will definitely have a nightmare tonight. Good martial arts indeed. No wonder you are able to stir the heavenly star continent up into chaos. Hearing the name Ling Tian is like seeing a ghost. A crisp voice sounded with a trace of shock. While the words were fast, a brilliant sword light was even faster. The sword light descended from a tree by the side with the target being Ling Jian's chest. There was nothing special about this sword strike, but it was unbelievably fast. Its speed could not even be described with words. Of all the martial arts in the world, only speed cannot be defeated. What a fast sword! After Ling Tian caught a glimpse of the sword, it was in front of his chest the next moment. The sword was lightning fast. This strike did not pursue looks or splendor but only had a single motive: to kill. A sword that was unleashed would not look back. Furthermore, not a single trace of killing intent could be detected on the sword. Or perhaps it would be accurate to say that the killing intent could not be felt in time. However, the aura of "it's either your death or mine" suddenly exploded forth and filled the surroundings. It was a pity that Ling Tian wasn't someone ordinary. Ling Tian felt a trace of familiarity in his heart. In his memory, there were many others who could unleash such an attack: Ling Jian, Ling Qi, Yi Beif, and Ling Tian himself. An assassin. A top-notch assassin. How could Ling Tian deal with such a fast sword? Ling Tian's upper body remained motionless, but his feet made a crisscross and he turned his body sideways. The life-severing strike then passed by Ling Tian's chest and a chilly aura brushed past Ling Jian's chest. Life and death in an instant. Following that, a slim figure suddenly appeared by Ling Tian's side with a short dagger in his hand plunging towards Ling Tian's abdomen. From the trees on both sides, 9 rays of sword light shot out towards 9 different directions and descended from the skies like demons. At the same moment where the sword lights descended, the surrounding air seemed to have been sucked dry by the 9 descending swords. While it was still noon with the sun shining brightly, the dozens of burly men by the side felt as though the space where Ling Tian was standing at had been enveloped with a black ball of haze, making it impossible to see what was happening within. At the same time, another 6 rays of sword light appeared and formed a dense sword net, covering Li Zhu, who was rushing to aid Ling Tian. They were actually ambushed at the same time. Ambushed by top-notch assassins at the same moment. The 15 assassins who had appeared afterward were actually no weaker than the first assassin who ambushed Ling Tian. Each of them had their teeth clenched tight as they tried to exchange their lives with Ling Tian's. A full 16 top-notch assassins were actually sent out for a single ambush mission. Such a lineup could fully display the determination to kill Ling Tian. As though his dagger had already plunged into Ling Tian's abdomen, the assassin burst out into a smile. But the next moment, the assassin felt as though his dagger plunged into thin air and he did not even hit anything. His dagger was launched when his body was right in front of Ling Tian, and by the time the assassin realized that something was wrong, his figure had already passed by Ling Tian's side and it was too late to send out a second attack. Right at this moment, the assassin suddenly felt a sharp pain in his abdomen with his innards rupturing. A spurt of blood shot out from his mouth as he witnessed Ling Tian's knees returning to their original position. I was obviously the one attacking Ling Tian, with him using all he had to avoid my attack. Why was I the one to get injured? Why? Right when the both of them brushed past each other, Ling Tian swiftly circulated his inner qi and sucked in his abdomen, forming a small crater to avoid the dagger. At the same time, he lifted up his knees and smashed the assassin's abdomen. By making use of the force generated from the assassin's speed, the might of his knee strike was doubled and the assassin's innards were completely destroyed. As for why the assassin's ambush turned into himself being attacked, that was no longer important. After the assassin charged forward for another 50 feet, he collapsed motionless on the ground and took his final breath. With his final willpower, he looked towards Ling Tian and saw Ling Tian brandishing a sword to receive the 9 attacks launched towards him. The sword in his hands looks so familiar. That was originally my sword, and it was in my hands a moment ago. The assassin's consciousness came to the very end as his life dwindled away with his eyes wide open in shock and doubt. Everyone could clearly see that the assassin's hand was empty with his sword missing. Just when did Ling Tian take the assassin's sword? Only speed cannot be defeated. To deal with a swift attack, one needs to be even faster. In this world, there wasn't the fastest, but only faster. A crisp phoenix's cry sounded, and Li Zhu's slim figure began spinning on the spot. Her snow-white palms struck out in all directions, and after a few palm strikes, Zayu sounds could be heard and the space around her seemed to have been frozen. As the chilly inner chi met the scorching daylight, a kai-kai sound could be heard and a white mist covered the whole battlefield. The divine ice formula was activated fully. Chapter 435, Complete Annihilation. What a good divine ice formula! What exquisite inner strength! Ling Tian cheered. Li Zhu, you did not let down the name of Zhu One indeed. You are indeed a lass who has come out from the mountains. Amid the laughter, a loud metallic clang sounded, and Ling Tian parried another one of his opponent's strikes. Li Zhu was angered to the point she wanted to quarrel with Ling Tian again. The first half of Ling Tian's sentence was still reasonable. But what did he mean by indeed a lass who has come out from the mountains? In what way is the strength of my divine eyes formula related to this? How infuriating! A leopard will never change its spots even after reincarnating into a second life. A casual remark from him is enough to drive me insane. Just wait for me to grab hold of that belly of yours and yank it a full 180 degrees. However, being trapped in an intense battle, how would Li Zhu have the time to find trouble with Ling Tian? Li Zhu clenched her teeth and a chilly glow shot out from her eyes as she vented her frustrations on the 6 assassins in front of her. Her inner chi shot up to an unprecedented height and her petite figure weaved around the sharp sword lights nimbly like a bolt of lightning. The fog surrounding her became thicker and thicker and the ground beneath her slowly froze into a thick layer of ice. With a ping sound, a green-dressed assassin fell flat on his face and a thick layer of ice formed on his head, dying without a single grunt. Due to the thick fog in front of him, another assassin could not see clearly and ended up dripping on the dead assassin's head. He then felt a cracking feeling underneath his feet and as he looked down, he could not help but despair. After receiving a palm strike from Li Zhu, the dead assassin's head was frozen into a block of ice and became extremely brittle. Upon being stepped on by his fellow assassin, his head was shattered but not a single droplet of blood could be seen. Instead, the only things that could be seen were solid blocks of brain matter and flesh clumped together in the ice, scattered all around like an exploded watermelon. An assassin should have been extremely used to such a gory sight, and nothing should disturb him. However, this assassin let out an angry roar and just when he was about to charge forward, a silhouette flashed in front of him and he felt his shoulder turn cold as a dainty hand left his shoulder. The next moment, he felt as though the right side of his body began to turn completely numb and he could not take a single step. A sword charged straight to his chest and just when he was about to shout out, "It's me," he realized that his mouth couldn't move an inch. He then witnessed his own brother stabbing a sword right through his chest. At this moment, he could clearly feel that his heart was punctured before swiftly losing all feeling as he closed his eyes and took his final breath. Ling Tian's sword danced around and a vigorous spout of sword chi shot towards the skies, forcefully breaking through the lockdown of the 9 swords above his head. With the opening above his head, Ling Tian then shot up 50 feet into the air. The 9 people below him then spread out in retreat and tilted their swords towards the sky facing Ling Tian. At the same time, their eagle-like gazes were locked onto Ling Tian's figure emotionlessly as though they did not even see the deaths of their comrades. They did not even blink a single time. They were truly top-notch assassins, capable of viewing their life and death with contempt. Ling Tian finally rose up to a height of 60 feet. And the force of his jump was spent. The sword in his hand began to spin around and his figure formed a spinning top, blood slaughter pavilion. The 9 people below continued staring at Ling Tian without a single one giving a response. Ling Tian then gave out a sinister laugh. "I wonder how many assassins the blood slaughter pavilion has to serve as training for my sword?" All of a sudden, a loud whistle sounded, and Ling Tian began spinning faster as he began his descent. When he descended to 30 feet above the ground, a realistic-looking sword net had condensed around his body and Ling Tian looked like a bright silver top descending from the skies. If Li Zhu saw the scene in front of her, she would definitely shout out in surprise, "Flying saucer? UFO?" However, it was a pity that Li Zhu was currently tied up with the other assassins and did not witness the scene. Furthermore, the scene only persisted for a short instant before a brilliant sword chi lit up the sky as though there was an angel descending from the heavens. Ling Tian's figure was already concealed in the brilliant light, and the river of light majestically descended as though it wanted to destroy the earth. The assassin who was at the very front charged forward with his sword, and upon coming into contact with the brilliant light was shot out 30 feet away. His body was covered all over with slashes, with the depth of every wound reaching his bones. While his eyes were still opened wide, his eyes no longer had any spirit. Eyes like these would only appear on the dead. Ling Tian was used to calling it fish eyes. Everyone knew that only the eyes of a fish would not be able to spin around, just like the eyes of a dead man. Ling Tian's sword charged right into the camp of the other 8 assassins like a cyclone filled with destruction, death, and killing intent. All of his pent-up frustrations could finally be vented in this moment. Unrestrained and uninhibited. At this moment, Ling Tian had such a feeling. Kill. Kill, 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 kill. Man and sword as one. This was the true man and sword as one. The eyes of the 8 individuals were filled with despair and determination. Like a moth flying into the flames, they valiantly received Ling Tian's attack. Their 8 swords stabbed into the brilliant sword light in unison. Facing such an attack, retreat was not an option and fighting was the only option. However, there wasn't a chance for them to survive if they were to fight. Could the might of such an attack be blocked by a human? Even the combined force of the 9 assassins was completely insignificant. As an assassin, their failure would mean death. Furthermore, they were facing the god of massacre, Ling Tian. How was it possible for Ling Tian to let them leave alive? Ding 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 ding. The sounds of metal clashing sounded and the sky was lit up brightly as though the sky was filled with fireworks. Bits of swords shot out in all directions and towers of blood sprayed out in the surroundings. Pieces of dismembered limbs, still carrying with them the warmth of a human body, began to fly out in all directions. In just a single exchange, not a single one of the 8 assassins was left with a complete corpse. They were only left with pieces of flesh, with the largest piece not exceeding the size of a palm. The assassin who died the first was the luckiest. After all, he was at the very least left with a complete corpse. Not too far away, the dozens of burly men began puking. What kind of swordplay was this? Even if you wanted to dice them up into 1,000 pieces, you should at least leave their skeleton behind, right? Currently, even their skin and bones were sent flying alongside their flesh. Only a single phrase could describe the scene in front of them: bones crushed and ashes scattered. The brilliant sword light then vanished and Ling Tian reappeared panting heavily. His hair was messy, face pale, and he had countless thin scratches on his body, with every wound bleeding slightly. Combined together, it was as though Ling Tian was drenched in blood. However, Ling Tian's posture was still upright, with a dense killing intent shooting out from his eyes. His sword was pointed towards the ground diagonally, with a stream of blood flowing down the body of the sword. Not too far away in the dense fog, the sounds of punches continuously sounded, with a miserable groan accompanying each one. Following that, the fog began to disperse as though being faced with a violent wind, and the battlefield was displayed before everyone's eyes. Li Zhu stood in the center of the battlefield silently, with her left shoulder and chest dyed red with blood. Her expression was tranquil, and there were 6 frozen corpses lying by her feet. The 16 elite assassins of the Blood Slaughter Pavilion were wiped out in a single battle. This was also because of their ill luck. According to the report they had received, Ling Tian was the only one they had to be concerned with. All of their plans were made to deal with Ling Tian alone. This resulted in them making an unforgivable mistake. If the 16 of them were to ambush Ling Tian alone, they definitely wouldn't have been wiped out and would have a fairly good chance of emerging victorious. However, none of them could predict that Li Zhu would appear by Ling Tian's side. Furthermore, Li Zu's martial arts also stood at the peak of the continent, and her ruthlessness was no less than Ling Tian's. Thus, while the annihilation of the Blood Slaughter Pavilion wasn't within their expectations, it was fully reasonable. Looking at the remains around him, Ling Tian let out a sinister smirk. No matter how powerful the Blood Slaughter Pavilion was, after their loss in Skybearing and losing 16 top-notch assassins here, it would be impossible for them to make a comeback. This would also eliminate a source of worry for Ling Tian in the future. Ling Tian let out a cruel smile and raised his elegant hands up, pointing his bloodied sword at the dozens of burly men. This action of his immediately stirred a huge commotion, as all the burly men thought that Ling Tian was about to attack them and began to escape in all directions. There were even a few who were previously shocked by the bloody scene in front of them, and after being further frightened by Ling Tian further, they collapsed on the ground and died from fear. Ling Tian then let out a chilly, disdainful smile of pity and said calmly, "Go back and inform Yuman Lu that he should be more careful when choosing his men in future. He should send out men who are more useful and make sure to plan carefully. At the very least, he should not send out trash to disgrace themselves." After pausing for a moment, he bellowed, "Scram!" Chapter 436, Treating Injuries. Just this word, this extremely humiliating and shameful word, was spat out carelessly from Ling Jian's mouth softly, as though he didn't even use any strength. He didn't purposefully increase his volume, but this soft reply was heard clearly by the 40 to 50-odd men around. It was as though they had received an imperial pardon. All their faces immediately showed traces of joy, and in fact, gratitude instead of anger, as they picked up their injured comrades and sped off. Upon leaving, some of them even bowed towards him, saying, "Thank you, young noble Ling, for sparing our lives. Your magnanimity will be repaid." Looking at the group disappearing over the horizon, Ling Tian quietly stood there with a sarcastic smile on his lips as he enunciated, "This is human character." "Why so?" Li Zu furrowed her pretty brows as she walked to stand beside him. Looking at the scene of blood and gore, she couldn't help but feel a little nauseous, her face turning pale. While her hands were bloodied with the lives of many, such a scene was something she had never seen even in her past life. Seeing Li Zu's condition, Ling Tian smiled as he replied, "Why don't we walk as we talk? Let's find a place to recuperate first." As he spoke, he moved forward, throwing the sword he snatched from one of the 10 experts carelessly on the ground. As it landed, the sword shattered into a multitude of pieces, totally unrecognizable. This sword had no special properties imbued within it during its making, and it was sustained purely by Ling Tian's strong internal energy. Now that Ling Tian had withdrawn his energy, the sword naturally reached the end of its life, totally disintegrating. Li Zu shot Ling Tian a look that seemed to indicate that she had other thoughts, before moving to catch up to him. "You mentioned just now that this was human character. What do you mean by that?" "We were originally enemies and couldn't share the same sky. But because I spared their lives, not only did they not have the dignity of a martial artist and feel humiliated, they were even thankful that they could leave and express their gratitude towards me. This, I find extremely interesting." Ling Tian slowly began. "I don't term this sort of warrior as a martial artist, but rather trash. This is because they don't even possess the hot-bloodedness of a farmer who tends to his fields day after day. Thus, I let them go. To have such people in the Yu family is a good thing for us." Ling Tian let out a meaningful smile. "What if they would rather die than retreat? What if they were those sort of strong and determined men? Would you really be willing to cut them down? Or would you be in admiration of them and let them go?" Ling Tian suddenly stopped short and turned back to stare into her eyes as he snapped, "Li Zu, you must drill this into your head. I said before that I'm no gentleman, nor am I some great hero. These are my heartfelt thoughts. An enemy will forever be an enemy. No matter if he's some great hero or some valiant warrior, ultimately they will be people that can threaten my life. I can admire and respect them, but when it's time to kill, I will not have any intention to let them off. Doing so is akin to leaving a tumor unchecked, letting them plot against you and your loved ones. Such an enemy can be said to be the most frightening one you can find. For a bunch of cowards, you can ignore, but for a warrior, so long as you leave him with a breath of life, there's always the possibility he will inflict tremendous damage towards you one day, which will leave you with irrevocable regret. Heroes pitying heroes will only ever appear in stories. If they become reality, then that would be a tragedy. Ling Tian concluded. Just like your past? A cripple exploding a great portion of the elites of the two biggest clans? Are you that kind of valiant warrior? Li Zhu stuck out her tongue as she jested. During this period of time together, following the release of their heart's burdens, their topic about the past lives was not as taboo as before, and thus Li Zhu dared to bring up this matter to tease him. Ling Tian gave a meaningful smile in return. That differs to some extent. I wasn't killed because I was meant to be used as a form of humiliation, as well as to form a bait of sorts. This was to allow those who helped me to be punished as well. Li Zhu silently thought about it, before smiling to herself. I was merely lamenting just now. If we had never experienced hardships and suffered, we would probably be like those people just now, running with our tails tucked between our legs. Ling Tian mused out loud. As the saying goes, a portion of hard work will reap a consequent portion of benefits. This is very reasonable, and the ancient sayings have never lied to me. That's right. In this world, if you don't work hard, then you only can let others step on your pride, forever remaining at the bottom rung of the ladder. Li Zhu lamented as she sighed. Wrong. Ling Tian laughingly scolded. It's not just this world, even our old Earth also had the same principles. There's no difference anywhere we go. Even if you are living on the bottommost rung, you still can use effort to succeed. Ling Tian resolutely spoke. A person's life has always been about starting from the very bottom and fighting their way up for their entire lives. While one might not always succeed, but they at least can achieve something. And that is by allowing his or her descendants to borrow from his strengths, to stand on his shoulders to reach greater heights so that one day they might extricate themselves from the bottom. So long as they work as hard, there will be a place higher up for them. Even if their children can't, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. There will be one generation which will succeed, and that's the essence of where there's a will, there's a way. You're trying to say that if every generation works as hard as the one before, Li Zhu left out, that one day, someone will stand at the top of the ladder. So long as one doesn't stop working, their future is limitless. Is that the meaning? Precisely. Ling Tian solemnly replied. There will always be people that tell their children, my life is gone, all my hopes are pinned on you. For parents like that, they have basically given up on themselves and thus are destined not to progress further. If you wish for your children to seek out a good future, you have to first start from yourself. Ling Tian let out a sarcastic smile. Li Zhu, however, retorted, but in every society, there will definitely be people on the lower rung. Ling Tian assented as he laughed out, as such, only those who succeed through putting in the effort can enjoy the fruits of their labor. For example, you and me. As they conversed, the two of them had long left the mountainous regions, and in front of them came the gushing of water, which revealed to be a small creek. Ling Tian nodded his head in approval as he spoke, here will do. I'll help you to treat your injuries. Li Zhu suddenly turned bashful, as her cheeks flamed up. I can handle my injuries by myself. Ling Tian's face sank. You might be able to treat those at your chest, but those in your left shoulder and on your back? Don't make so much noise. I still have to rely on you to treat mine later. I really dislike having scars on my body. They'll spoil this perfect body of mine that I've built up. Li Zhu's eyes lit up as she grabbed the chance to say, How about I'll help you treat your wounds first? After all, your injuries are more serious than mine. I don't really mind having scars on my body." "Bullshit," Ling Tian scolded. "How would I not know that your injuries are more severe than mine? How long would it have to take for you to finish treating me? Can your injuries even wait that long?" Seeing Li Zhu still being stubborn, Ling Tian could only sigh and say, "Xur, I'm your brother." And adding on a fierce tone, he continued, "Don't tell me you need to be so polite about me treating your injuries. Don't forget, I saw you in your birthday suit when you were young." Li Zhu blustered with a totally red face. "That was the past. I don't have any relations with you now. I'm called Li Zhu, not Xur." Ling Tian really flared up at this point. He snapped, "Stop giving me rubbish, past and present, there's no difference." As he spoke, he unceremoniously pulled Li Zhu over to him, stretching his hands out to undress her. Li Zhu let out a lovable moan, as she snapped her eyelid shut out of embarrassment. To think that she didn't even put up a token resistance, this was totally out of Ling Tian's expectation. However, following that he started to feel as though something was seriously wrong about this. In front of him was a girl who resembled a flower in full bloom. The moment Ling Tian saw the spotlessly white corset and faintly observed the proud and unyielding lines and peaks underneath it that would cause a person's imagination to shoot towards the high heavens, as well as touched the snow-white skin, carrying a tinge of heat, passing through from his fingertips straight to his heart, his face immediately turned red as well. It was then he realized the problem. Seeing Li Zhu still with her eyes shut, and her face completely red with her body slightly trembling, Ling Tian only felt an unbearable heat slowly rise up inside his body. Blaming his own lack of self-control, he angrily gave himself a tight slap on his face, the sound echoing crisply around. Li Zhu couldn't help but open her eyes and ask, "What are you doing?" "Nothing, just a mosquito." Ling Tian could only raggedly turn his face away and dunk a piece of clean cloth in the mountain stream. Injecting his internal energy, the surrounding water in the stream started to bubble as steam rose, and as he pulled the cloth from the water, he used his other hand to unravel the final chest wrap on Li Zhu's body, causing her snow-white flesh to jump and bob out. Ling Tian swallowed his saliva with difficulty, before focusing his eyes on the bloodied wound. He forcibly restrained his emotion as he slowly dabbed on it. With her eyes closed, Li Zhu let out a comfortable sigh from her nose, and suddenly started giggling as she asked, "Tian''G.T, is my body good to look at? Is it better than my previous life?" The commoner mental state that Ling Tian spent so long to achieve was quickly thrown into chaos once again. A womanly scent could be smelled with every breath he took, and all of his raging desires were hooked up with a single sentence from Li Zhu, almost making him unable to hold back. Ling Tian didn't know whether he should be angry, amused, or uncomfortable, and in the end settled by slapping her pert buttocks as he exclaimed, "Behave! Don't speak nonsense. So crude. Oh, I almost forgot, you've never seen my grown-up body before." Li Zhu pouted before reluctantly shutting her mouth. It was only after Ling Tian had finished treating her 3 slash wounds that she suddenly laughed out, snorting as she spoke, "Tian''G.T, you're so cute when your face is red. It's even cuter than your past life." Chapter 437, 13th Stage. Ling Tian helped Li Zhu bandage her wounds with his face bright red as he scolded, "Nonsense." Just when Ling Tian was doubtful about why the 3 sword wounds on Li Zhu's body were of the exact same depth but not harming her tendons and bones, he was distracted by Li Zhu's words. Standing up slowly, a crafty gleam could be seen in Li Zhu's eyes, "Tian''G.T, my body has been completely seen by you already. Will you take responsibility for me?" As she said that, she gave a lazy stretch as though she had just completed an arduous task. Ling Jian almost collapsed on the ground as he heard that. Li Zhu's words were far too potent. Ling Tian never expected Li Zhu to say such a thing suddenly, and regardless of how thick his skin was, he was still caught off guard. Nonsense. You are my sister. That was in the previous life. Let me emphasize that again. Li Zhu snorted. Besides, even in our previous life, we were separated by at least 5 generations despite being so-called cousins. Are we going to forget about how you have just taken advantage of me? To think that you want to deny everything and leave after having your fun. Being irresponsible isn't the action of a gentleman. Since when am I being irresponsible? I have not even touched you at all. Ling Tian jumped up exasperatedly. You. Unreasonable. Since when would a woman speak reason? You still dare to say that you didn't touch me? Li Zhu snorted. Anyway, my 16 years of purity has been fully witnessed and touched by you. Tell me what you want to do. She then began to fold her arms and act like an unreasonable spoiled brat. This little demoness. Although he had the feeling that he would eventually fall into Li Zhu's tricks, he never expected to fall like this. Thus, Ling Tian decided to employ the tactic of delaying the matter. We shall talk about this matter again in the future. So be it. Li Zhu said delightedly. Would I be afraid of you running away? Let me tell you, you better not try to be shameless. Who is the one being shameless here? Ling Tian let out a bitter sigh as a flash of enlightenment came to his mind. You already intended to hang on to me without letting go? How did you suffer from those 3 wounds? Your martial arts should have been more than sufficient to take care of those 6 assassins without being injured. With her plan being seen through, Li Zhu began frowning as she groaned pitifully. How painful. My wound hurts. As she moaned that, tears began to well up in her eyes. Although Ling Tian knew that she was only faking it, he still felt his heart twitching with heartache as he thought to himself, this little demoness. I will take care of you in the future. It is now time for you to take care of my wounds. Ling Tian said with a straight face. Li Zhu immediately burst out into smiles as she approached Ling Tian. Okay, you can take care of me in any way you see fit in the future. Now, it is time for me to see your perfect body. He. Ling Tian let out a sigh of defeat. As Li Zhu meticulously tended to Ling Tian's wounds, the both of them didn't stop chatting. Li Zhu, what level is your Divine Eyes formula at? The upper 8th stage and approaching the 9th stage soon. Why? How did you cultivate so quickly? I remember that you have to absorb pure yang energy in order to progress past the 7th stage. Since you have never left the mountains, how did you get to the 8th stage? Ling Tian asked doubtfully. You fool. Does not exiting the mountain mean that I can't collect anything with yang energy? Let me tell you, it would be possible for me to collect yang energy items even on a snow-capped mountain. Li Zhu said proudly. How did you do it? Ling Tian was extremely concerned about this matter. Recently, he had been worried about how Ling Jian could achieve a breakthrough in her Divine Eyes formula. However, as an outer branch disciple in his previous life, he didn't have any experience for reference. Despite racking his brains for a solution, he just couldn't think of an idea. Now that he heard that Li Zhu had a plan, he couldn't help but be elated. You fool. I still thought that you were extremely intelligent. There is something called a convex lens. Li Zhu snorted. While there isn't glass in this world, we can use something else to replace it, such as... Ling Tian came to a realization, like Jade. Haha, I got it. Your IQ is only sufficient for you to think of Jade. Li Zhu mocked. You are asking me because of your little beauty, right? Don't worry, I will definitely help you arrange it properly when the time comes, lest you end up scarring your little beauty because of your ignorance and it would become my fault. Ling Tian broke out into a cold sweat. 1 2 3. Li Zhu counted carefully, 15 wounds. Why so many? It shouldn't be possible for those few fellows to injure you so badly. As she said that, tears almost rolled down her eyes from heartache. Ling Tian let out a bitter laugh. I have been tidying up my meridians according to your proper cultivation formula and have only reached the 6th stage currently. I will need another day at least to reach the 9th stage. Thus, my man and sword as one was unleashed with the 6th stage and is lacking as compared to my peak form. However, they are only superficial wounds and will heal up quickly. Li Zu replied with a no before grumbling, with your movement techniques, it should have been an easy matter for you to stall for time until I finished off those 6 fellows. You only know how to act strong. I know, it is probably your male chauvinist pride acting up, right? HMPH, only heroes are allowed to save beauties, but you heroes will have your pride wounded when being saved by a beauty. Thus, you risked being injured in order to finish off those assassins before my arrival. Afraid that you will owe me a favor? Ling Tian let out an embarrassed smile as Li Zu's words were spot on. Seeing Li Zu wanting to continue, Ling Tian quickly changed the topic, talking about that, despite it being slightly more than a day only, I could feel that my meridians are far more tough and flexible than before. If this situation can persist, breaking through to the 10th stage shouldn't be too far away. You still think that it is extremely simple? Li Zu's attention was indeed directed away. When you cultivate up to the 12th stage, you will know what is considered difficult. The unbreakable 13th stage will probably drive you insane. 13th stage of the Divine Shocking Dragon Formula? Ling Tian suddenly stood up. Weren't there only 12 stages in the Divine Shocking Dragon Formula? Where did this 13th stage come from? Li Zu let out a mysterious smile. Actually, the so-called 13th stage is as good as non-existent, so we are used to saying that there are only 12 stages. While the 13th stage does exist, not a single person has managed to cultivate it for the past 1,000 years. It's best you give up on it. Why? The 13th stage of the Divine Shocking Dragon Formula is an extremely mystical one. There aren't any mnemonic chants, meridian pathways or any cultivation experience. How can one cultivate it? Back then, our Ling family's ancestor only managed to create the Divine Shocking Dragon Formula by combining various cultivation formulas from the Shelline Monastery, Yudang Mountain, and other famous heritages. Ever since our ancestor passed on, not to mention the 13th stage, there weren't many who were even able to cultivate up to the 10th stage. An outer branch disciple like you breaking into the 10th stage is already extremely rare, and it's best that you don't think about anything more. Li Zu chuckled and said in an indifferent manner, in any case, you would already be the #1 expert of the world if you can achieve the 12th stage, and you would definitely be able to win against that justice. Why do you have to pursue that non-existent 13th stage? Ling Tian shook his head in disagreement. How can that be the same? Since I know that there is a 13th stage, how can I not cultivate it? After pondering for a moment, Li Zu said, let me tell it to you then. There is only a single word in the 13th stage, emptiness. Let me ask you, how do you cultivate it? The manual doesn't even say what can be considered successfully cultivating it. If you were to enter into cultivation deviation, who in the world would be able to save you with your inner chi of the 12th stage? Furthermore, it is still far too early to talk about that. After all, there probably isn't much hope for you to get to the 12th stage in this life of yours. Hee hee. Ling Tian muttered to himself as he lowered his head. 13th stage. A resolute gaze suddenly shone out from his eyes and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. However, Li Zu didn't see it because his head was lowered. After a short while, Ling Tian raised his head up and said, do you still remember the fact that the family sent me to the Shelline Monastery? Li Zu immediately knew what Ling Tian was referring to and exclaimed, you have the recipe for the Great Cyclic Pellet? Ling Tian let out a delighted smirk, not just the recipe. I have successfully concocted a cauldron of it. Each pellet would raise one's cultivation by 20 years. When your injuries are better, I will protect you and you can consume a pellet. Li Zu let out a depressed sigh and shook her head. What a pity. No wonder your cultivation rose so quickly. However, I already can't consume that item." Ling Tian was startled. "Why? Weren't you puzzled about the progress of my divine eyes formula?" Li Zu forced a smile. "When I was 8, I coincidentally found a purple ginseng fruit. Haze. I have already consumed something similar, and with the origin of the herb being similar to the great cyclic pellet, my body wouldn't be able to endure the consumption of the pellet." While Ling Tian remained silent, he secretly sighed in his heart. While the purple ginseng fruit had a miraculous effect, its effect definitely couldn't be compared to the great cyclic pellet. Thus, Li Zu had missed out on a great opportunity to raise her cultivation. However, if he were to place himself in her shoes, he would have definitely consumed the ginseng fruit if he were to find it when he was 8. It can only be said that they each had their own fortune. Furthermore, Li Zu's present cultivation was definitely a result of consuming the ginseng. In any case, the purple ginseng fruit was still an extremely rare herb and only a tad bit worse than the great cyclic pellet. Li Zu then broke out into a smile and said, "However, if there is that legendary item." Chapter 438, Entering Bright Jade City. Ling Tian let out a sigh and said, "We better not place our hopes in that item. Since you have already consumed a spiritual herb and had a large improvement in your cultivation, this great cyclic pellet is a useless item to you and there isn't a need for you to think about it." Li Zu responded with an as she tied a final knot on Ling Tian's bandages. "All done." Ling Tian looked at his own body and almost burst out laughing. With his attention being distracted by his conversation with Li Zu, he never noticed that his wounds were fully bandaged already. However, the way it was bandaged was just too. Ling Tian let out a bitter laughter as he looked at Li Zu. "Li Zu, the Dragon Boat Festival is over already and you haven't had enough dumplings?" As Li Zu scanned Ling Tian's current appearance, she couldn't help but burst out into laughter at the uncanny resemblance Ling Tian had to a dumpling. Seeing Ling Tian's depressed look, Li Zu chuckled and kissed Ling Tian on the cheek as she consoled, all right, even if I haven't had enough dumplings, I wouldn't swallow young noble Ling. Be good, don't be angry. Hee hee." Bright Jade City. After Yuman Ting and Yuman Tian had bid farewell to their brother, they took 100+ followers out from the western gate. Along the way, Yuman Ting was obviously extremely troubled and even the usually boorish and optimistic Yuman Tian was silent and depressed. Big brother has really changed a lot recently. Yuman Ting looked at the red clouds on the horizon and let out a sigh. "He has changed to the point I can no longer recognize him. Is he still our big brother, Yuman Lu?" "Huh?" Yuman Tian asked in confusion. "Second brother, what nonsense are you spouting? Do you think that big brother is actually someone else in disguise? How can that be possible? How can there be such an amazing face-changing technique in the world? While big brother has made many vexing decisions recently, he is still big brother. You are truly clueless about everything. I am obviously not talking about someone disguising himself as big brother but how he has become overly ambitious and impatient recently. If it was in the past, it wouldn't be of any concern to me. But now, this may not be a good thing for our Yu family." Yuman Tang glared at Yuman Jian as he thought to himself, talking to this fellow is no different from a chicken talking to a duck. I wonder if I will go crazy from anger in this trip. I don't really think so. As that fellow grows older, his temper has become much better. He is much better towards you because you both like to scheme against others. In the past, it has always been both of you scheming against others together. If not for Bing Yan being involved this round, you would probably be on his side also. Yuman Tian pursed his lips in dissatisfaction. Towards me, I think he only knows how to beat me up. However, this daddy here can't fight back. Who are you calling this daddy? You dare to call yourself daddy when talking to your second brother? Yuman Tang flew into a rage. However, because he understood his third brother's character and didn't know how to reprimand Yuman Tian, he could only let things slide. Third brother, When are you going to change the way you speak? Big brother has scolded you about it countless of times already, and you now dare to call yourself daddy in front of me? Do you believe that I will send you back right now? Isn't your daddy the same as my daddy? Ling Tian chuckled with a "what can you do to me" expression. But the next moment, he also let out a long sigh. This fellow also knows how to sigh? Ling Tian looked at his third brother curiously. Ever since his third brother was born, Ling Tian had almost never seen him sighing before. Just what had happened to his third brother today? Even this boorish fellow knows how to feel depressed. Seeing his second brother's doubtful gaze, Ling Jian urged his horse to move up faster but didn't say another word. In the past few days, he had been thinking of the 6 little brothers of his in sky bearing. Those days were truly wonderful. However, could they be the assassins of the first pavilion? Their swordplay was truly made for killing. Especially that Ling Jian, capable of killing an individual without blinking his eyes. If those few brats are the assassins of the first pavilion, just what should I do? Should I tell Big Brother about it? If I tell him, Big Brother will definitely kill them without a second word. He would rather kill the wrong person than risk letting the culprit go. However, what if they weren't from the first pavilion? Wouldn't I be harming them? What good seedlings! Without them around, who would spar with me in future? Thus, Third Master Yu had been feeling extremely troubled for the past few days. While one of the reasons for him to volunteer to go to the Lei family was to protect his second brother, it was also a way for him to escape from his frustrations. At the very least, it was better than him acting like a thief with a guilty conscience. With regards to the matter between the Ling and Yu family, Third Master Yu felt that whether from the perspective of morals or reason, his family was the one in the wrong. However, he was trapped in the middle and felt extremely miserable about it. He definitely couldn't face his conscience if he were to help his own family, and it would be impossible for him to help the Ling family. If he chose not to help either party, he also felt extremely horrible. Thus, he decided to escape from everything for a period of time. With Big Brother's martial arts, as long as he doesn't meet that martial order medallion owner, he will definitely be fine. With Ling Tian's martial arts, he would definitely be able to make it out alive. Just let them do whatever they want. Third Master Yu thought to himself. If Yu Manlu knew of his third brother's thoughts, he would definitely regret sending Ling Tian away at such a critical moment. If there was someone in the world who would be able to make a full retreat from the elites of the first pavilion, it would definitely be Third Master Yu. Furthermore, Third Master Yu was also the only person who could expose the relationship Ling Tian had with the first pavilion. Was this the so-called, 1,000 considerations by a foolish individual would definitely hit the spot somewhere. When the Lei family wanted to enter Heavenly Star back then, they were stopped by our Yu family. The Lei family head, Lei Zentian, personally came to negotiate the matter with Big Brother, but both you and I were not present. After that, the Lei family retreated for some reason and never mentioned the matter of entering Heavenly Star again. However, the strength of the Lei family was already not to be underestimated back then, and after developing over the past few years, who knows how well developed they are now. Furthermore, they have close ties with the Moon Deity Empire and can be said to be a single entity. For us to invite their entry this time and being on the passive side, I really don't know if this is a blessing or misfortune. Who cares about that? With his attention being shifted, Ling Jian returned to his usual boorish self. If they dare to act unbridled, we just have to beat them back again. Idiot. Our Yu family blocked them from entering back then and has already lost a great deal of face by inviting them in now. At that time, do you expect us to chase them out again? Ling Tian felt his blood boiling. Furthermore, the present situation is extremely odd. With so many things happening in our family currently, why would Big Brother want to send the both of us out? If it was only for this matter, I wouldn't believe it for sure. Ling Tian held on to the reins with a single hand as his head drooped down sleepily. I think Big Brother's arrangement is to avoid us, so he can deal with Ling Tian without any obstructions. Yu Mantang let out a long sigh with his brows furrowed. We can only hope for that child to have good fortune and deal with the matter himself. Even if we stay behind, we wouldn't be able to change anything and would be stuck in a dilemma. Big brother's actions can also be considered kind. After letting out a self-depreciating chuckle, he looked towards Yu Mantian. A loud roar sounded. Yu Mantian! You BSD road! This daddy is talking to you, and you dare to doze off. Ah! Who hit this daddy? Ah! Amid Yu Mantian's groans, two horses sped up suddenly and a loud roar could be heard. You little brat had better not run away. When I catch up to you, I will beat you to death. You darn BSD road. At a position not too far away, a male and female were hidden in the bushes, witnessing the troops gradually leaving their sights. The white-dressed male then muttered, "Strange, with the storm stirring in the Yu family, why would Yu Manlu send both of his brothers out? If he was afraid that Yu Mantian would ruin his affairs, that would still be an acceptable explanation. However, that Yu Mantang is a wise individual and can be considered as one of the few strategists in the continent currently. Why would Yu Manlu send him out at such a time and further thin out the strength of his Yu family? Could it be that Yu Manlu has something else to rely on? Could it be that he has other trump cards?" By his side, the blue-dressed lady twitched her lips. "Why bother thinking so much about it? You just need to go in and ask. Furthermore, this can be considered something good for you, right?" The white-dressed man nodded and a smile surfaced on his lips. "Li Zhu, we are about to enter Bright Jade City and we definitely can't enter with our original appearance. What should we do? Do you want to dress up as my maid or study attendant? Why are both of my character choices your servant?" Li Zhu snorted, "Aren't you a little too good at taking advantage of me? I won't choose either one." "Then how do you want to go in?" The white-dressed man was naturally Ling Tian. With their speed, they had arrived at Bright Jade City in a short half a day. After a night of rest, they were brimming with energy, and Ling Tian had finally tidied up his meridians up to the 9th stage with the correct divine shocking dragon formula. "How do I want to go in?" Li Zhu thought for a moment before giggling. "Why don't you dress up as my maid? With your elegant appearance and fair skin, I would definitely take pity on you. If not, we can dress up as a husband and wife pair and sneak into the city. Wouldn't our disguise be even more perfect? There definitely isn't a better idea than these two. You can choose one of them." Cough cough cough. Ling Tian began coughing incessantly. Chapter 439, Getting Ready for Action. It was a deserted hut. A black-dressed Ling Jian held onto a small slip of paper in his hands and had a bitter smile on his face. "Last Chen really knows me so well. She knows what I am afraid of the most. However, even if this is the case, I will." Ling Feng and Ling Yan gathered closer to take a look at the note, and after reading it, Ling Feng persuaded, "Brother Jian, I know what your plans are, but I think that you should think through it carefully. The Yu family can't be compared to the interior of an imperial palace, and even the security of Beyond Heavens probably can't be compared to the Yu family. Since Sister Chen gave you such a condition, she obviously doesn't want you to take the risk. If you were to insist on going, I'm afraid." "No. It is the opposite." Ling Jian shook his head confidently. "If she doesn't want me to go, the message in my hands would be for my swift return. Chenner also can't make up her mind right now. She doesn't want anything to happen to me but isn't willing to give up such a good opportunity. Thus, she would give me such a condition. On one hand, she is giving me approval, but on the other hand, giving me pressure and asking me to be careful." Ling Jian's gaze then swept past Ling Feng and he said with a smile, "All of you can also tell but purposefully misinterpreted her meaning, right? Besides, things have already developed to a critical stage. If we can't be decisive at such a moment, we will only suffer in the future. The Yu family has continuously revealed an unknown source of strength, and no one knows how much more strength they have hidden. While it doesn't matter now, the battle will definitely begin when young noble returns. At that time, we will be stationed by his side and will no longer be able to bother about these things. However, these hidden strengths of the Yu family will be a destructive force towards our Ling family and will definitely be a wild card. We can't afford such a loss. Ling Jian said with a solemn expression. Young noble always says that we have to look at everything with a pair of strategic eyes and look towards our final goal. Every single step we take is for our final victory. The hidden strength of the Yu family will definitely be a hindrance to our plans, and we won't be able to sleep peacefully if we don't get to the bottom of this. Furthermore, Yi Beif was able to retreat fully after attempting to assassinate Yu Manlu, and my present martial arts are far superior to Yi Beif's. Nothing will happen to me for sure. Even the 1,000-year-old Yu family may not be able to keep me from leaving. If that's the case, Brother Jian must be careful. This little brother will not say anything else. Knowing that it was impossible for him to persuade Ling Jian, Ling Feng let out a sigh and left. So what if it is the Yu family? Even if I have to enter the dragon's nest or tiger's lair, would I, Ling Jian, be trapped? Ling Jian let out a chilly smile. If I don't go, do I expect young noble to take action personally? Is young noble feeding us for nothing? At night, the 6 of us will be your lookout, and we must fully investigate the Yu family. We just don't have to tell Sister Chen. Ling Yan proclaimed. As Ling Yan said that, the 5 others brimmed with battle intent as they looked at Ling Jian. Definitely not. Ling Jian rejected. Last Chen had said clearly that none of you are to go. Are all of you going to defy her orders? Do you know why she would give such an order? Ling Jian's cold gaze swept past the 6 of them. It is because all of you are still unable to aid me. Even if the Yu family can't keep me from leaving, the Yu family may be able to keep the rest of you. You have to remember, when young noble isn't around, Last Chen's words are equivalent to young noble's words. I don't want to hear any of you defying her orders. I don't want such a thing to happen again. The 6 of them lowered their heads in guilt. Especially Ling Yan, whose face turned completely pale and whose clothes were drenched in sweat. Talking about laying an ambush and assassinations, all of you are undoubtedly top-notch experts. In the field of assassinations, young noble has personally mentored all of you, and all of you are definitely far superior to the assassins in the continent. If the 6 of you were to catch Yu Manlu off guard, it wouldn't be impossible to assassinate him. Ling Jian said coldly. However, when we talk about an upfront battle, the 6 of you are still greatly lacking. It would be an achievement if the 6 of you can even beat Yu Tian. There are far too many capable individuals in the world, and after we return to the courtyard, all of you will be receiving special training. The 6 of them lowered their heads and didn't dare to say anything. Ling Jian then turned around and said in a low voice, I will enter the Yu family at midnight tonight. If I don't return in 2 hours, all of you are to leave immediately and return to Sky Bearing. You must not delay for even a moment. There isn't a need to bother about my life or death. Brother Jian. The 6 of them lifted their heads up with their eyes turning red. My mind is set. There isn't a need for words. Ling Jian hollered, did all of you hear what I said? Are all of you going to defy orders again? The 6 of their eyes were reddened and fixed on Ling Jian, but none of them said a word. Ling Jian said coldly, if I don't return, this will be my final order. Are all of you going to defy it? Ling Feng took a step forward and said in a hoarse voice, rest assured Brother Jian, us brothers will definitely obey your orders. Brother Jian is blessed by the heavens and will definitely return victorious. Blessed by the heavens? Ling Jian said with an odd smile, ever since I was 9, my hands were stained with blood. I became the pavilion head of the first pavilion and held the lives of others in my hands for a full 6 years. In the past 6 years, more than 1,000 individuals have died under my sword. Young noble had once said, killing one is a crime, killing 10,000 is a hero, and killing 1,000,000 makes one a hero amongst heroes. I have lived my life according to that code and I have no regrets." Ling Jian let out a maniacal laugh and his black figure disappeared from the hut, leaving a sentence behind: "If any of you dare to follow me secretly, I will kill you personally. I will not permit my subordinates to defy my orders." As the sky was about to turn dark, a man and woman walked into bright Jade City. Their ages weren't too old, but upon close inspection, they looked extremely mature, as though they had been through lots of hardships. Especially the young man, his skin tone was extremely dark, as though it was a piece of charcoal. On top of that, his appearance was a sight too ugly to witness, with a pair of triangular eyes and his messy hair drooping down covering half his face. From head to toe, the only slightly more pleasant thing about this young man would probably be his figure. The figure of the woman wasn't too bad. If one were to look at her from the back, he would definitely have the urge to commit a crime. But if one were to look at her from the front, he would probably have the need to defend himself. Apart from her tan skin tone, her face was yellowish and skinny, as though she had been deprived of a good meal for a few years. Furthermore, her face was covered with pimples, with pus oozing out from some of them. Both the man and woman were dressed in ordinary coarse cloth which had been washed repeatedly to the point that it was turning white. In some places, there were even patches of cloth stitched on to mend their clothes. A pair of poor broke people. A pair of poor broke people without a single cent on them. The guards by the city gates couldn't even be bothered to question them, as they let out a sneer and quickly waved them in, lest the two individuals stay at the city gates for too long and smear them with bad luck. They didn't even have the mood to search these two individuals and elicit bribes. After all, could a pair of poor people like the two of them possibly produce anything of value? By the side, a few purple-dressed characters studied the two of them carefully. While the purple-dressed characters didn't find anything wrong about them, they could vaguely feel that something was amiss. They could feel a strong sense of danger. Could they be enemies? The man and woman walked into the city under the gazes of everyone as they chatted merrily with each other. "Big brother, this city is huge. It's so beautiful. There are so many people." "That's right. This is your first time in the city, and everything is naturally extremely fresh to you. Your big brother is someone who has seen the world before, and a city like this can be considered not too bad. Little lass, you must perform well when we see Uncle later. Maybe Uncle can find a good family for you to marry. Like the Yu family that everyone talks about, it definitely wouldn't be a bad choice. You should definitely consider them." That's right, that's right. Big brother, if I can become the young miss of the Yu family, I will definitely make sure that you can have a fresh bowl of porridge every day. Hee hee, it would be my fortune if that's the case. My dear sister, you have to remember that I want 2 bowls of porridge at that time. We can also put on airs to anger that erg. I can rely on my little sister's fortune to disgust all of my brothers. The both of them have become crazy from being poor. They truly know how to dream, thinking of being the young miss of the Yu family. With the way she looks, even if someone paid me money to take her as a maid, I wouldn't want to take her in. The guards by the city gates began cursing with disdain. A mistake. It must definitely be a misperception. How could the both of them give me such a dangerous feeling? It seems that we are overly worried thanks to that darn Ling Tian. Why isn't he dead yet? By the side, the dot in the few Yu family's experts also disappeared as they focused their attention on the others entering the city. Very quickly, the pair of poor siblings were forgotten. There were just far too many people in the world who had such unrealistic dreams, and there wasn't a need to make a big fuss out of it. The Yu family has tightened the security indeed. Thankfully we changed our appearance meticulously, otherwise we may not have been able to enter the city. The poor little sister stuck out her tongue and said mischievously. Since when did this young noble make a mistake? The triangular eyes brother said proudly. Furthermore, we have just killed 16 assassins near Bright Jade City and even intentionally sent people back to spread the news. If Yu Man Lu does not put up his guard, Wouldn't he be thinking less of you? You. Irritating. That little sister stomped her feet and wanted to pinch her older brother in the waist. However, isn't your clothing a little too exaggerated? How ugly. It doesn't matter if you want to doll yourself up like a clown. Why do you have to force me to do so also? Alright, you still dare to push the blame to me? How unreasonable. My appearance was all a result of your makeover, and you dare to say that I am ugly? Furthermore, since when did I force you to disguise yourself as such? You obviously performed the makeover yourself. That older brother said helplessly, I am innocent. HMPH, who asked you to force me to become your younger sister? With such a horrendous-looking brother like you, how can I as the sister be any much better? How dare you say that you didn't force it upon me? That young lady kicked a pebble on the ground angrily.
Thank you for your continued following. Please support us by subscribe to encourage our continued creation. And press the bell to notify new chapter from us. Thank you.